Live everywhere.
Daily Co's Radio on netrootsradio.com presents
David Walton. Kagro in the Morning Show. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? Want to do a show today? Okay, well, it's January 11th, Wednesday, January 11th, 2017. Everything is A-OK on the technical side. Thanks again for the thumbs up. Justice, thumbs up where? I don't know. Let's not talk about it. Donald Trump is in some trouble today. Donald, you're in trouble. Yes, I'll have to check and see whether any of the New York tabloids took me up on that one. Too easy, I would guess. You have by now, no doubt, if you have turned on Twitter or any other computerized device and talked to anyone, found out that, the world is buzzing about Donald Trump again and what he's been up to. And what can I tell you? Is it fake? I don't know. Is it nonsense? I don't know. Does it matter? I don't know. I don't know. However, long story short, I don't know. I really don't even know the story. Something, somewhere along the line, I don't know what happened. The story started out as yesterday afternoon, the intelligence agencies saying, we briefed Donald Trump on the fact that the Russians say that they have compromising information on Donald Trump, including video from a visit he made to Moscow. And of course, we know he's been to Moscow. And it took about 20 minutes, and all of a sudden, all hell breaks loose. People are claiming they have leaked documents. God only knows where it comes from. I got no idea. You check the kerning on this stuff. Who knows whether it was made up? And within an hour, it was like, he hired, this story is so dumb. I could read it to you. He hired prostitutes in Moscow and took them to the hotel. They were staying, I guess, in like the presidential suite of whatever hotel they were in. And the story goes, well, this is the presidential suite. I know the Obamas stayed here when they visited. I don't even remember them visiting Moscow. Did they? I don't know. They probably did. Who cares? And he it says in the report, it actually uses the goofy terminology that he paid these prostitutes for a can I do this on the radio? I guess so, right? There's nothing wrong with the individual words, although there's nothing wrong with the word blow and then, Anyway, that wasn't it. Golden Showers Show is what it says in the report. I can't help it. I'm just reading you the Star Report, ladies and gentlemen. It's in the news. I don't know what I can do about it. Every 20 years or so, you're going to have to explain to your kids some other sort of sexual behavior that you had hoped. I don't know. Maybe, what do you hope for on something like that? Well, you'll learn about it on your own, and well, maybe not. I don't hope for that either. I just hope I don't have to tell you. Well, too bad. So far, my kids haven't discovered it. I don't know how, because I stayed up all night howling at this. As you know, you might have imagined that. Certainly, Bill did, and when he tweeted this morning, Daily Co's Radio is live now. We hear Kagro X. That's me, David Waldman. Was up till the wee hours working on this edition. It's true. Every pun you can come up with is worth doing. And I'm sharing with everybody over the Twitter nets this morning. I happened upon an already golden yellow colorized Pepe the Frog, which lends himself perfectly to being Pee-Pee the Frog, of course. And I invite you to grab it off of the internets and use it to troll Donald Trump all day long. I don't know whether the story is true. It reads like something that you would make up if you were trying to come up with a fake news story to burn Donald Trump. That's the one I'd write. And it reads like it. And so what? I don't know. It doesn't even matter. By the end of the night, Donald Trump deplorable type alt-right fans were claiming that they had in fact written up the fake dossier and in an attempt to to lure liberals into believing it and talking about it, and so therefore the joke would be on us. That has worked just fantastically. I don't care if it's real. I don't care if it's fake. The whole world is talking about Donald Trump being a pee freak, and that's enough for me. I hope it's not true, almost. Although, really, I hope it is true. Anyway, sure, it'll make our nation a laughingstock, but too late for that. I'm already all in on that one. And, yeah, he's very angry. And I'll tell you this, though. He was so quiet last night. Last night, what actually happened was President Obama gave his farewell address, and everybody I know watched it, which is great because they can come on and tell you about how fantastic it was. I watched Twitter watch it. I know this. They cried at the end, so it was like a good movie. I made pee jokes all the way through, and I'll tell you this. Donald Trump was silent. And silence, as you know, is golden, so that's good. Donald Trump was silent during this speech. He had nothing to say. So in total damage control mode, and of course, it probably didn't worry him a great deal. The damage control for him is to say, no, it's a lie. But fine, who cares? He didn't have anything to say. There were no 3 a.m. tweets. He didn't even wake up early to start yelling. Now, this morning, he's screaming about it's all being fake, and it's terrible, and I'm being, I don't know, victimized. Who cares? I don't even care what he's saying. Now, we all are talking about this other nonsense, and that's a great victory as far as I'm concerned. Keep it up. 4 years. Can you do it? I don't know if I can keep up that pace. Greg Dworkin is with us. I don't know what kind of pace you can keep up, Greg, but
it's hard, I have to say.
It's
all right. Let's just be clear here.
Oh yes,
you are hysterically funny.
All right.
I was watching your
like
Twitter feed yesterday. I have the pundit roundup up today, and it is important in this particular case. I think vitally important to understand the power of mockery and sophomoric humor.
Yay, I'm in for that.
Yeah. So you have this whole thing about the leak happening, and then BuzzFeed.
What? Oh, yes.
Yeah, we'll get to that. I mean, so BuzzFeed puts out the actual documents, at least in terms of getting a copy of the unsubstantiated, unclear things. And
very cloudy.
Half the reporters looking at it say this is amazing, and the other half of the reporters saying, tut, 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 how could BuzzFeed put unsubstantiated things out there on the internet?
Right. Beware of the rumors of the second peer, by the way.
Something
we don't know
like
about
that.
This.
You know, Mark Harris, who is author and journalist, writes, it's if you had anything to do with publishing the WikiLeaks stuff.
What? Yeah.
Right? More leaks.
Right. Perfectly named.
Then don't talk to me about BuzzFeed. You have nothing to say. I have less than zero interest in your opinion of what BuzzFeed should or shouldn't have done. You have the New York Times with these gigantic headlines about WikiLeaks said this, Comey said that 11 days before, and it turns out not to be true. No lectures about what BuzzFeed does or doesn't do.
Yeah, not too
interested. It's just not happening. And yet, at the same time, mockery is something that goes beyond what smug liberals in their elite bubbles talk to each other about. I mean, this stuff is all over the internet, you included. And the Trumpsters and the trumpeters and stuff like that really are having a tremendously difficult time fighting this, as is Trump himself, because the more he talks about it, the more it's the story. This is not one of those things where you can just tweet to distract.
No, I guess not. It's
I mean, you have this story about everything coming out from unsubstantiated allegations about him being compromised in Moscow. Greg Sargent tweets, skepticism about intel leaks is the right posture, but that should lead us all to push harder for a full independent probe, right? Jennifer Rubin says, forget the select committee. We need an independent prosecutor. Oliver Willis points out, they've called us disloyal for decades, and they nominated and elected a Russian mole asset patsy. Okay, I say, prove he's not.
Okay.
And then we get into the mockery stuff. Richard Sandling had a great one. Tinkle Taylor, soldier spy. Right?
Yes.
If you have to ask, I said on the Pundit Roundup today, if you have to ask what that means, chances are you don't want to know.
I can promise you.
But if I told you, it would be undignified. I mean, somebody with gravitas would never say such a thing. It would, Lawrence Tribe writes, it would be unprecedented.
Everybody's all in.
Right? You're there with We the People, WEE. And then add, oh my God, please help me. That's exactly right. This is all over the internet, and everybody's reading this at every level. This is one of those things where the New York Times and the Washington Post can write all they want to in the op-ed page about the ramifications of this and how we spoke to people from other countries and had experts who you never heard of say this, that, or anything else. It doesn't matter. It's all over the front page of the Daily News and the New York Post.
Yes, which is a good idea, and you should spread the Daily News and New York Post out on your bed if, you're having him over.
Because it would help to pick things up. I mean, just some hysterical tweets. Noah Rothman, conservative. This is crippling. Broderick Greer. Russia hacked officials in both parties, but only used the information it got on Clinton and her team. Adam Sawyer writes, let's say the intel's false. Comey still decided to publicly release compromising but meaningless info only about Hillary Clinton close to the election. David Frum, CIA message to Trump, you mess with us, get ready for a leak storm of biblical proportions. And now we're off again, and we're doing the same thing, and it is not, you can't fight this.
Well, they've made it easy.
They have. They really have.
So it's been great fun, and I'm reminded, Bill reminds me, he's got his press conference at 11 after the show. He's waiting for me to be done. And this is the one where he's supposed to announce how he's going to untangle himself from his
all I can say is
Yes. Well, it's going to be a day. What can you do? All right.
I think he's going to be a wee bit upset.
Yeah, yes. I've been having a good time with the puns.
I mean, how do you not laugh? But this, you can't erase that. You can't. And let's just step back a little bit and say, okay. I'm going to give you a little bit of a longish tweet storm about the other part of it, which is, of course, that while these are allegations, the factual ties with the Paul Manaforts and stuff like that is quite real. Mm-hmm. But stepping back from that just for a moment, here you have Donald Trump, professional narcissist. That's not a medical opinion. That's a blogger opinion.
Oh, all right.
And, he is being mocked.
He is, and he does not like that.
That's the thing. How's he going to respond to this? What happens? He's sputtering mad. I guarantee you he is pacing up and down wherever the heck he is, and he is throwing things. He is angry.
Yes.
What happens now? And he's going to go out in the press conference?
It's going to be a really great one. I was worried about him last night because you know how he is. I thought he would maybe finally get some sleep and forget about it, and then when he does his wake up at 3 a.m. to pee, he'd be like, oh, God damn it. I'm peeing again.
Just order a large barrel of uppers and, eat them all and then just stay up all night and tweet.
I don't know what he did. I'd be curious to know whether he was sedated last night because, how could he not have been up
Remember
and
that
tweeting?
Old Saturday Night Live sketch about doggy downers and puppy uppers? You just have to alternate from one to the other until you get to what you need.
Yes. Meanwhile, of course, I guess if you took all the allegations in the report seriously, that's the least worrisome of all of them because the rest of it is about, oh, yeah, by the way, we just openly conspired to take Ukraine off the table and abandon a potential NATO ally to Russian predatory expansion.
Behavior, yeah. And at the same time, by the way, there's evidence that maybe what happened is that the Russians and the Trump campaign were collaborating or at least sharing information or having contact during the election. Does this raise any concerns? It
yes.
sure does.
Yes, for me it does.
Anyway, Chris Baugh works in entertainment, blogs about politics, on Donald Trump and Russian ties. In light of the fact that we're supposed to be skeptical about the latest Trump allegations, I want to tell you a story. And you know what? I love stories. As many of my friends know, I love stories. A long time ago, there was a man named Paul Manafort. Paul Manafort was a GOP operative who exported his political expertise. He and Roger Stone ran what was known in D.C. as the Torturers Lobby. Oh. They worked with warlords and despots. Paul Manafort even worked closely with Russian oligarchs and kleptocrats with ties to Vladimir Putin. Manafort was one of the operatives who worked in Ukraine to elect a pro-Putin government. This is a verifiable fact. At one point, Manafort went missing for 3 weeks. Roger Stone joked that he had been kidnapped by the Russians. This is around 2010.
Oh.
According to some members of the intelligence community, around the same time, Russia began cultivating Donald Trump as an intel asset. Timing, I'm sure, is totally coincidental, just giving you a sense of where we are in the history. 2011, Donald Trump starts a birther movement.
Yeah, yes.
In 2012, Donald Trump flirts with run for president, doesn't run. At some point, Hillary Rodham Clinton runs afoul of Vladimir Putin. She and Obama both take aggressive stance. In 2016, Donald Trump declares his presidency. He starts as a long shot managed by Corey Lewandowski. Trump grows in prominence, fires Lewandowski, hires Paul Manafort, whose last job was in Ukraine, on behalf of Putin. Paul Manafort, who owned a lobbying firm with Trump, confident Roger Stone. Paul Manafort, who had been kidnapped presumably by Russians at one point but survived unharmed. Trump's positions on Russia softened under Manafort, including Ukraine. Specifically, Manafort's in charge over this summer. Comes out, Manafort received $12 million in an off-books ledger from the pro-Putin party in Ukraine. Before this comes out, DNC emails are hacked. WikiLeaks releases hacked emails. Why did Assange do this if it was an intel op by Russia? Maybe for the promise of asylum, but that's speculation. Maybe because he hates Clinton and Obama. Again, speculating. But regardless, these leaks hurt one party and help the other party. So now Manafort resigns after the Ukraine thing comes out. Trump hires Steve Bannon, another one of Roger Stone's friends. Manafort probably keeps advising Trump, regardless. He lives in Trump Tower, so they see each other. Roger Stone officially resigns. Now Stone and Manafort are unofficial advisors, strictly speaking. Two of Trump's new policy guys are Michael Flynn and Carter Page, both of whom have ties to Putin and Russia. These are verifiable facts, I will add. Galas with Putin, RT dinners, that's Russia Today. Speaking engagements, Manafort, Flynn, and Page. Remember the names, Manafort, Flynn, and Page. So now WikiLeaks starts leaking Podesta's emails, mostly harmless stuff, but Hillary Clinton and emails, bad luck. We know they were hacked. We suspect by a state agent. You've been paying attention. Answer's pretty clear who. So, election happens, Trump wins. Then the intelligence community confirms what most of us knew or suspected, that Putin had launched an intel op specifically to hurt Clinton. Came out he wanted Trump to win. That he was behind the DNC attacks, that he was behind the Podesta hacks, all Putin. Curiously, President-elect refuses to accept the findings, claims it could have been anybody, defends Assange. Curious. In response, POTUS Obama kicks out 35 alleged Russian spies posing as diplomats. Big move. Intel community seems pretty certain Obama's doing stuff he wouldn't do otherwise. So today, this new trove of background comes out, and it's unverified. Well, so what? What do the documents say? 6 years ago, they began cultivating him, that they conspired to get leverage over him, that they preferred him to Hillary Clinton, that they had Russian spies in the U.S. posing as go-betweens, that there was high-level cooperation with Trump's campaign via Paul Manafort and Carter Page. Remember those guys? So we're supposed to be super, super duper skeptical about all of this, because if you didn't know who Paul Manafort was or what he did or who Carter Page was, and if you didn't find it odd that Trump's Secretary of State-elect won the Order of Friendship, if you ignored all of these things, I guess it's healthy to be skeptical. And he adds, I'm not an intelligence professional. I have the benefit of being able to make unqualified claims. I don't know when it started or what the end game was, but Russia wanted Trump and cultivated him for years. Manafort offered Trump the presidency if he played ball with Putin. That's what Flynn and Carter Page were for. Manafort and Page were the go-betweens. The 35 expelled diplomats were in on it. The intelligence community is clear on exactly how it happened. You can say this is all circumstantial, that Manafort and Putin and Trump and Stone and Page and Flynn all met in the locker room one day. But to me, this has been clear as day since Manafort signed up. He was working for Putin on Trump's behalf or vice versa. He quit when it became toxic. He didn't go anywhere. So here we are, a week out from inaugurating a compromised asset of Russian intelligence, President of the United States. I don't have some cool conclusion, but he appears to be beholden to a foreign power, and that's just filling in the outlines of stuff that people have been saying since last summer. I add, forget the Fortran people. People have been saying this since last summer. You don't need CIA clearance for this. I don't know who leaked the new info. Very little of it was surprising, and it probably won't matter. Welcome, Comrade Trump. God help America. Bye. I mean, so much of this was verifiable fact that fits in with what they're saying, that, you know, it deserves mockery, and it doesn't change what we already knew.
No. and it fits pretty well with what we've heard in the past.
And gives you a chance to rest your voice.
Yes, that's true. And if there's any more tweet storms, I'm happy to entertain them. I don't know what else to add to it. I think we've covered it pretty well before it covers us. Anyway, it's been a wild 12 hours, and that's all it's been. And I guess I can't wait for the press conference. I'd be curious to see how that one goes. Of course, I won't watch it, but I'll watch you all watch it, and I'll be amazed if he manages to keep his composure. And if he does, I think it's because he's probably been medicated.
Probably. Took the doggy downers instead of the puppy uppers. He needed the puppy uppers to write the tweets, but now that he's got the press conference, they'll give him the doggy downers, and it'll come across as presidential.
Yes. We hope so.
We hope so.
Gosh.
So listen, this is just the graphic that I put together for the pundit roundup today. I just want to read you some headlines because there were so many stories yesterday.
Yes.
We have the Russian stuff. Trump briefed on claims Russia has compromising information. Trump received unsubstantiated intelligence ties to Russia. I am happy to remind everybody these are unsubstantiated intelligence claims.
Yes, they are.
Like the other fellow said, but if you were talking about WikiLeaks at all, not interested in your opinion about whether they're unsubstantiated. So, GOP relents to pressure, delaying 4 cabinet hearings. Looks like the public protests and the protests from the ethics committee people and the FBI about not finishing the work matters. Betsy DeVos is one of the people that's been delayed. We have vaccine skeptic Robert F. Kennedy Jr. saying Trump named him to lead a vaccine safety group, and vaccine safety is in scare quotes. I love that. Because it's Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who was an anti-vaccine nutter. That's a medical term.
Yes.
Obama, of course, gave his speech, as you mentioned, sees a bridge for a divided nation, was a grown-up in the room. Fantastic. All of this is happening. And I got this piece from Slate I wanted to highlight about Jeff Sessions.
Ah, okay.
Because Jeff Sessions had his hearing. I didn't see it.
Yes,
I was busy. Did you watch any of it?
I don't think I did. I mean, I think I flipped by it a couple times. Certainly saw lots of people watching it. I was watching other things, and not even it was before the peeing. But it didn't go very well. I don't think it's over yet either.
No, this is Dahlia Lithwick, who's a courts and law writer for Slate. Very good.
Yes.
Very good. And she writes, for hours on end, Sessions rebuffed, usually extremely deftly, forceful questioning from Senate Democrats about controversial statements he has made about the Voting Rights Act, his history with civil rights litigation, and his refusal to support legislation punishing violence against women. And what seemed to be the only moment gobsmacking enough to bring the Senate chamber to almost complete silence. In the late afternoon, Sessions had this terse exchange with Senator Sheldon Whitehouse of Rhode Island. Whitehouse suggested that lists were already circulating, suggesting there might be purges or demotions of certain career appointees in the Justice Department. Whitehouse wondered whether Sessions would have a problem with career lawyers, quote, with secular beliefs, end quote, having in the past criticized department attorneys for being secular.
That is okay. Yeah, that's
right? Did that strike you?
Sure, yeah.
Sessions replied, he's used that language about secular attorneys, there's a link here, to differentiate between people who recognize objective truth and those who take positions in which truth is not sufficiently respected. Whitehouse replies with a leading and perhaps slightly conclusory question. Lawyer term?
Yeah.
And a secular person has just as good a claim to understanding the truth as a person who is religious, correct? At which point Sessions said, I'm not sure. For a few seconds, the Senate chamber seemed to go completely silent.
Well, he's considering his answer carefully.
Then he's quick to reiterate that he doesn't believe in a religious test. Whitehouse moved on to questions about whether Sessions could be persuaded to abandon the GOP denial of global warming. He says he can, but it was one of the very few moments in which Sessions' deft denials of prior positions and statements veered completely off script. It spoke to the levels of obfuscation that are now customary in such hearings, especially about matters of faith, and the degree to which hearings become theater in which little true about the nominee and their most deeply felt positions are revealed. It also demonstrated that the views that Sessions is hiding are absolutely inimical to the democratic values of many members of the Senate and a large portion of the country.
Yeah, he was hit pretty hard.
Yep.
The White House one wasn't even one that I heard that much about. Al Franken apparently was also very tough on him. and nailed him down on a couple of places. And the hearing went on long enough that by the end, Al Franken had clearly gotten wind of the the intelligence reports from yesterday. So he didn't quite, reference them as explicitly as we've been doing here. But clearly the initial reports had reached him, and he had a bit of a smirk on his face as he grilled Sessions for the second time around. I would, at this point, yield all my time to Senator
Al Franken and Sheldon Whitehouse.
And say, it's all you, guys.
Yeah, you do it. So she concludes, Dahlia Lithwick, in a deep sense, the language of religious morality has crept into this transition period with arguments that words spoken have no real meaning. Nobody, save perhaps God, can know what's truly in a man's heart. I mean, that's Kellyanne Conway, right? Mm-hmm. Don't believe what he says, just know what he's in his heart. Sessions inadvertently conceded Tuesday that people of God are closer to truth, including those who happen to be at the Justice Department. He's almost certainly going to lead. Nobody in the chamber knew what to do with that statement. But as is the case with the very finest gaffes, this was the moment that revealed both why Jeff Sessions will be handily confirmed and also why Democrats are rightly very, very afraid.
I see. Yes, well, that's true. I mean, he'll end up there, unless who knows what kind of stories could come out on him this morning. I don't think he's ever been to Russia, but I don't know for sure. But yeah, when he gets there, it's going to be an absolute nightmare. And you had a preview of it. George W. Bush's administration showed you exactly what can happen in the voting rights section. It will happen again. This will be the man who leads it, and we'll all say, "Oh, I'm shocked. How could this have happened? How could the DOJ become politicized?" It was before we booted the guy out of office. He was term limited out of office, George W. Bush, and then we all said, "Meh, let's not look backwards so much." Well, we're looking backwards now.
Yeah, we are. And I'm just looking at my Twitter feed as we talk and finding myself still in the auto position of blocking anybody whose handle is deplorable.
I've muted
that's like
those
automatic. Guys. I don't even know why you bother writing me if that's the case. You're out.
Yeah, I'm not interested in the feedback. I mean, we're having a good time. Come on, it's P jokes. Don't get so serious, guys.
Yeah, and remember, Trump is really pissed.
It's been
I'm sorry,
fun.
but you're right. Oh my God, stop me. I mean, you can't stop this. You can't. It's important too, because he's going to hear it and he's going to react to it, and that's part of the deal.
Yes, I had a good time asking Donald Trump yesterday whether he would invite me to. Hey, Donald Trump, will you invite me to your inauguration? Mm-hmm. I just
one of my favorites. I didn't include that one only because I didn't want to include like 19 of your tweets in my roundup.
You have to make a choice.
But they were all important.
I think so. Oh, by the way, I also was intrigued by Michael Cohen's role in this. He shows up in the intel report. And it's alleged that he met with, who cares? I didn't read it. I got to the P part and that was it. He went and had some kind of a secret meeting in the middle of the campaign, I guess with Russian operatives in Prague, in
something
Czech
like
Republic.
That, some go-betweens.
Yes. And so he's a lawyer, but I guess not a great one. Anyway,
yeah. And by the way, that is what people are saying online is one of the most unsubstantiated of the unsubstantiated things. They actually are more ready to believe the tape in the Ritz-Carlton in Russia in the suite about the golden showers than they are about the Michael Cohen meeting. But go on.
Yeah. He denies it like they deny everything in the report. Why not? I guess go ahead. But he tweeted out, and remember, for those of you who don't remember, this is the Trump lawyer who denied the existence and possibility of spousal rape early on in the campaign, and also he's the so what guy and which polls, right? Says who?
Yeah.
The guy who showed up with it. You're losing the
polls.
Which
all
polls?
Of
all of them. Says who? Right.
Classic moment.
Yeah. But I mean, it was interesting because that was in August, that whole says who moment, and that was so boldly counter to all the narratives. I mean, they turned out to be quote unquote right. I guess they won, quote unquote won.
Yeah, thank you, James Comey, for changing the narrative.
Yeah.
Go on.
But it was a very weird thing in August to sit there and say, I mean, all the polls did show that they were losing, and he pretended like he either didn't know that or didn't believe it for whatever reason, and that was timeline-wise, that would have been about when he would have allegedly returned from Prague. At which point, I don't know what they would have even told him in Prague. Like, don't worry about it, we fixed it, so go back and say something crazy. I don't know why that would have happened. But he tweeted out his denial, and I thought it was particularly interesting that as a lawyer, he tweets out, I've never been to Prague in my life. And by way of proof, I guess, he attaches a picture of a United States passport, which I assume is his passport, and I assume that in his mind he was like, look, here's my passport, I've never been to Prague. Of course, it would be the inside of the passport that would tell us, if anything, whether or not he entered or exited through the Czech Republic. Of course, in Europe you can go. And he says, the only places I was last summer was, let's see, he visited his daughter at USC, and I went to Italy, which of course, once you're in Italy, you can go to the Czech Republic without having any more passport stamps. But even if you did get your passport stamped, it would be inside, and the outside of the passport doesn't even say, hey, this is Michael Cohen's passport or anything. So I thought that was kind of an interesting entry for him. I think that would probably be unfounded evidence.
Are you saying
in evidence
that a picture of a passport with Dreams Time stamped all over it is not necessarily proof to you? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. And the fact that he would rely on it as proof, I wonder how he would do with that one in court.
Like nobody's ever photoshopped anything, right?
Right. Well, I'm sure it is his passport. It was so amazing because on no level does that work. The outside of
I got a better
unidentified
denial.
passport.
I got a better denial from this whole thing. Donald Trump.
Yeah?
Yeah, you know what he tweeted?
I think
which is proof, and therefore we should stop talking about it.
Okay.
He says, Russia just said the unverified report paid for by political opponents is complete and total fabrication, utter nonsense, and very unfair. Not only that, complete and total fabrication, utter nonsense is in quotes, and not only that, a complete and total fabrication, utter nonsense is in capital letters.
Oh. Well then.
So Donald Trump offers us proof that he and Russia don't have ties, that Russia just said they don't.
Yeah, it's the old
what am I missing here?
I don't know. But
that
Russia
might not have been the
it.
wisest thing to tweet. That was this morning at 7:13 a.m.
Oh, so he got his briefing finally from the Russians.
The drugs kicked in.
Yeah, yeah, maybe. Well, I don't know what's going on over there in Trump world. I don't know what that's supposed to mean, that the guy's never been in Prague. I don't know what the passport is supposed to... I know what he thinks it means.
And Russia says it can't. It's not true, therefore it's not true.
Yeah. So
I don't know where all the mockery is coming from.
I do not know.
This is a simple critique of journalism and how it's supposed to work. I think what we need is a blogger ethics conference.
Right. In Moscow.
Well, because bloggers really have to be a lot more responsible about how they criticize media and use unsubstantiated information, don't you think? It's all bloggers' fault.
I blame them.
I blame them. Anyway, that's the summary for today. A lot going on, a lot of different issues, more confirmation hearings today. Rex Tillerson is today. Not that he has any connections with Moscow, mind you.
No.
And so that's why all of this in the middle of all of that really makes a difference. You know what? Trump's going to be president. Most, if not all of these people are going to be confirmed. He is damaged. He's damaged goods. He has low ratings to begin with. The mockery is going to stick. This is not going to be Teflon stuff, and he's going to be a damaged president from day one.
He was already going to be, but now we have something to laugh about while it's all going on, which is great because the world is going to end.
And with that, this is Greg Dworkin speaking with my friend David Wolfman, Kagro in the morning, who honestly is sounding better today, so I hope the voice holds up for the week. And thanks so much for listening, folks. Download, podcast, live, however you do it. We're very grateful. This is Wednesday. You got Joan on today?
I think she's busy today watching the hearings.
I think she's, I know what she's doing. I mean, she's trying to think of puns that have to do with, tweets that she could put up because, like this, everybody is doing this.
We all got to get in on it.
We all got to get in. So, anyway, take care. Lots of stuff. I left a couple other stories with you, but
all right.
I think we covered most of them, actually, as it turns out.
Yeah,
there's other stuff. Today's Pundit Roundup, I couldn't just put story and story. I had to do all these tweets. It was a tweet pundit roundup. It was really kind of interesting. Hadn't done that before. But in any case, take care, and I will be back tomorrow. Tomorrow's Thursday,
yes.
And we'll do this again.
We get 2 in a row, Wednesday, Thursday.
Yeah.
Great.
Take care.
Thank you. You do the same. Pee in the appropriate place is all I can hope that we all do at this point. Okay. I believe Joan is busy with the hearings today. Tillerson is up. By the way, I'm pretty sure we got to this yesterday. Yesterday's LOL Nothing Matters YOLO roundup. I mean, I guess pales by comparison. It's a pale golden by comparison to today's, in which really literally nothing matters. But I hope that I remembered to mention that Tillerson, who is up for, of course, Secretary of State, had been accused of, if I archived it from Pocket, that probably means I mentioned it. But if not, the accusation is that while he was at the helm of ExxonMobil, the company did business with Iran and other prohibited nations under United States economic sanctions. And while that is not necessarily unusual for corporate actors like Rex Tillerson, it's unusual that you have to answer for it as nominees as Secretary of State. I don't know how you go forward with a nomination for Secretary of State and get taken seriously if you are a sanctions ignoring blockade runner, essentially. How are we supposed to put you out there on our behalf? I mean, sanctions is going to fall under your purview as Secretary of State. And I guess it's no different from any of the other nominees that Trump has put forward, in the sense that they're being put up because they have advocated undermining, destroying, or even eliminating the departments they are running. So that's an issue with a lot of the other departments. I don't know if anybody believed that they were out to dismantle the State Department. I think even most libertarians agree that that's still pretty essential as departments go. Maybe the anarchists don't. I assume the anarchists don't. How else could it be? Unless they're just half-assed anarchists. But the Tillerson thing, I guess, it's a bit of a surprise in that sense. Nobody really thought they were going to dismantle that, but maybe they are going whole hog on this, and they're going to take apart the State Department as well. The story from, where did I pick this one up? USA Today. Is there? I guess we'll just skim it for more details. ExxonMobil did business with Iran, Syria, and Sudan through a European subsidiary, while President-elect Donald Trump's nominee for Secretary of State, Tillerson, was a top executive of the oil giant, and those countries were under U.S. sanctions as state sponsors of terrorism, according to Securities and Exchange Commission filings, of all places. Okay. So, again, not only do we have a problem if the Secretary of State can't take sanctions seriously, we would have a problem with the Secretary of State who doesn't take terrorism seriously. If they're under sanction for being a state sponsor of terrorism, I don't know. I wouldn't want to have to answer those questions. But apparently Rex is prepared to. I mean, maybe he thought that we wouldn't find this out somehow, but I don't know. I think, again, it just goes into the LOL Nothing Matters YOLO category. There's a little bit more detail in this one. ExxonMobil, let's see. The sales, I guess we'll start here. The sales were conducted in 2003, 4, and 5 by Infinium. That's Infinium. Infinium, in which they owned a 50% share, according to SEC documents unearthed by American Bridge, a Democratic research group. So therefore, it's not true, right? ExxonMobil told USA Today the transactions were legal because Infinium, a joint venture with Shell Corporation, was based in Europe, and the transactions did not involve any U.S. employees, just the money. The money from it went into my pocket. But other than that, it didn't involve any Americans. The filings from 2006 show the company had $53.2 million in sales to Iran, $600,000 in sales to Sudan. You can't sell a whole lot of stuff to Sudan. And $1.1 million in sales to Syria during those 3 years. He became a senior vice president at ExxonMobil in August of 2001, president and director in March of 2004, and chairman and chief executive on January 1st, 2006. The SEC letter questioned ExxonMobil's failure to disclose to shareholders that it had transactions with 3 state sponsors of terrorism. You're going to have to, I don't know how often you can depend on people to say, spoke to some terrorists recently, took some money from them. But, okay, well, they did file it. Compared to ExxonMobil's overall annual revenue of $371 billion, these transactions are not material by any reasonable measure. Richard Gutman, ExxonMobil's assistant general counsel at the time, wrote in response to an SEC inquiry regarding the transactions. Now, by the way, was this the SEC documents from 2006? Is that right? Who was president and in charge of the SEC in 2006? Was that a Democratic guy or... Anyway, yeah, it's not... it's a drop in the bucket, a golden drop in the pea bucket, if you will. The versus their $371 billion. But sanctions are sanctions. It's pretty black and white. You're not supposed to be doing any business with them. So, okay. Those hearings are underway, and I can tell you that because Twitter just showed me a screen cap of it. Brad Johnson, who tweets as Climate Brad, who would, of course, be following this closely, says Senator Cardin is up and questioning Mr. Tillerson right away. So 41 minutes into the hearing, so I guess that must have started promptly at, or thereabouts, at 9 o'clock. Okay. Let's see. Michael Musson saying, Senators to question Tillerson for his views about emissions on the Senate floor. Oh, my God. Wow, Rex 2? I can't believe it. Amazing. Okay. Well, that's a good one, Michael. All right. Well, I just have to send that one out so all of you can see it. And, should I include the PP the Frog in that one? Or just, okay. Well, anyway. Yeah, I guess why not? Sure. Okay, so you can all enjoy that one. Michael, I think it's a good one. Well done. Let's see. What else have we got here? He also has said, I predict Trump is showered with questions at 11, and he responds in his trademark stream of consciousness responses. It's all out there for you to explore with your own pun-making talent, ladies and gentlemen. Please share what you got with us. And if I can control myself, if I can hold it in, if you will, I can share them with everybody on the air. All right, what else have we got here? Things that we didn't get to yesterday that we ought to. New things that came out yesterday. On the serious side, I did pick this one up. As you know, we mentioned who's the terrible guy that's having his hearing now also. Oh, yes, Jeff Sessions. That continues today, I believe. By the way, on the Senate floor, they will be finishing up the budget resolution. And it is, by the way, very unusual that they would be I don't think I've ever seen them consider a budget resolution, maybe in the last couple of years. I guess it's possible because they keep failing to pass things like that. But usually the budget resolution is not something that you would see a new Congress considering in January. The reason that they are considering it, and remember this is a budget resolution for fiscal year 2017, which began in October of 2016, but because that's the way fiscal years work. So the idea of considering a budget for a fiscal year which is already one quarter over, why are we doing it? Because they didn't finish it last year. And nobody has, as far as I've seen, made the point of discussing that. It was a minor point, but since they're debating it on the floor, you might as well point out we're here debating S-Con Res 3, Senate Concurrent Resolution 3, which, my goodness, okay, I'm just saying, there's some pictures being tweeted out from inside the Tillerson hearing. And Code Pink is there, but there's also a couple other oddly dressed folks inside. So looks like a fun kind of circus. Anyway, where were we? Oh, yes. So Sessions. Oh, no, right. I'm sorry. The S-Con-Res 3, the budget being on the floor. Very unusual. They are, of course, only considering this now because the previous Republican-controlled Congress, and remember, there was a Republican majority in the House, and it was bigger than it is now, and a Republican majority in the Senate, and it's bigger than it is now, and they couldn't get a budget together. And the idea that the president somehow blocked it, remember that the president doesn't sign budgets, not the concurrent resolutions that Congress passes. There's no reason in the world that the Republicans could not have taken care of this business last year with even bigger majorities, but they aren't, they didn't, and they are instead spending the first days of the brand new Congress taking care of work that they failed to do last year. Just putting that out there. Anyway, so yes, today is the day that they'll wrap up on that. There has not been much focus on the upcoming project of encouraging Democratic senators to use the procedural tools at their disposal to slow things down. Of course, because we mentioned yesterday, the budget is under a 50-hour cap. That will finally run out today. And we will see them enter into what they call the vote-a-rama. All of the still pending amendments to the budget document will come up for votes. You get a sort of perfunctory 2 minutes of debate. Once the 50 hours runs out, if there are still amendments pending, all the amendments get voted on one after the other, and you get 2 minutes, basically. 1 minute for the sponsor to say, this is my amendment, and everyone should vote for it, and 1 minute for an opponent to say, nuh-uh, you shouldn't, and then a vote. 15 minutes at minimum. And sometimes these things get dragged out, and they can be doing their vote-a-rama for hours and hours and hours. But after that, they'll get back down to business, and we'll have to see what they put on the schedule. But there might be the first opportunities for Democrats to begin monkeying with the procedure as soon as tomorrow, if they even meet tomorrow. Thursday, they're already thinking about getting out of here. We'll see what the schedule is going to be. We'll update you on that. In the meantime, all the attention is on the hearings, and they are beginning to space these things out and beginning to agree to delay more and more hearings. Yesterday we mentioned Betsy DeVos has had her hearing delayed. Also a delay for Wilbur Ross, the, what was he nominated to? Commerce Secretary. Remember him? He's the guy who owned the Sago mine when it blew up and killed their miners. Good choice, like trolling West Virginia. Excellent idea, Donald Trump. But his hearings will be delayed, too, because he hasn't finished his ethics filings and financial disclosures. Wow. What a strange thing to have happen. In the meantime, though, the Sessions hearing continues. I thought it would be interesting to take a look at this. This is just sort of a peek back in history. Mark Sumner covered this over at Daily Kos. I grabbed his piece about it. It seemed historically significant, so I thought I would share it with you. Coretta Scott King's letter that helped sink Sessions in 1986, when he was nominated to be a federal judge, is finally public. Did you know that there was such a letter? Did you know that it was not ever made public until now? I found that significant. I thought I'd share it with you. You wonder, what would Coretta Scott King have said in a letter in 1986 to the Judiciary Committee, which was Republican-dominated and chaired by Strom Thurmond? My God. So think about that. Strom Thurmond's Judiciary Committee ends up sinking the nomination of Jeff Sessions. He's now... What? Wow. And so here he is back. This is a bad situation. Anyway, the letter that Coretta Scott King wrote to the Senate in 1986 when Jefferson, Beauregard, Sessions, the third, for God's sake, was up for a federal judgeship was never entered into the record. So until now, it hasn't been available to the public. According to BuzzFeed, Democrats cannot get the letter released as they are beholden to committee rules that give only Senator Chuck Grassley the power to do that. The question is, can a Democratic senator just read it out loud as part of their time? They can. If they can get the text, they absolutely can do that, and they can actually read it, of course, on the floor of the Senate as well. But doesn't matter because the Washington Post has obtained the letter. And here's a quote from it. Mr. Sessions has used the awesome powers of his office in a shabby attempt to intimidate and frighten elderly black voters. For this reprehensible conduct, he should not be rewarded with a federal judgeship. He shouldn't have said make him Attorney General. The irony of Mr. Sessions' nomination is that if confirmed, he will be given a life tenure for doing with a federal prosecution what the local sheriffs accomplished 20 years ago with clubs and cattle prods, she wrote. Later adding, I believe his confirmation would have a devastating effect on not only the judicial system in Alabama, but also on the progress we have made toward fulfilling my husband's dream. This letter was buried in 1986 by then committee chairman Strom Thurmond. It's easy to see that he and Sessions would have gotten along famously, Mark writes. So I thought that was important. The full text of the letter, no doubt, available over at the Washington Post. But I guess I wanted to put on record that someone has finally put that on record. How do you like that? Okay. Technicalities to start the morning. All right. Well, that's one of the many things that I thought was particularly important. Something I thought was not particularly important, but put aside anyway. I happened to notice a Bloomberg write-up on the saga, the continuing saga of Trump vodka, which sort of somehow, maybe kind of, becomes relevant in the wake of today's most shocking morning news. But okay. We'll save that one for another day. Let's see. I did have another piece here, by the way. It's a Mark Sumner kind of a morning, and I guess I should have checked to see whether he was available. But just to toss this into the mix, this references, let's see, problems that Trump has that did not come up in yesterday's dossier, but are hanging out there nonetheless. This was not among the compromat alleged to be in the hands of Russian intelligence. And by the way, in addition to all of the, all the peace stuff, and of course, all of the insane and bordering on treasonous intrigue surrounding Ukraine, there was also there were also allegations of continuing, ongoing communications between the campaign and Russian operatives, and allegations of there were, of course, allegations of sort of undetailed financial improprieties. The big punchline would have been, of course, if what they meant was we hacked and stole his tax returns. We've got him. That would have been enough to sink him. Anyway, this piece that Mark wrote from Monday, or that was published at least on the front page on Monday, I think is relevant even if it's not a part of this dossier. Donald Trump was bailed out of bankruptcy by Russia crime bosses. We've been dancing around the edge of this for a long time, and so I just thought Mark could kind of succinctly put a capper on all of that stuff we've been talking about for ages on the show. In 2008, he writes, Donald Trump Jr. attended a real estate conference where he stated that, you'll all have heard this before, Russians make up a pretty disproportionate cross-section of a lot of our assets. We see a lot of money pouring in from Russia. As it turns out, that may have been an understatement. Human rights lawyer Scott Horton, oh my, whose work in the region goes back to defending Andrei Sakharov and other Soviet dissidents, has gone through a series of studies by the Financial Times to show how funds from Russian crime lords bailed Trump out after yet another bankruptcy. The conclusions are stark. We've certainly, like I said, danced around the edges of this. Scott Horton coming in to bat cleanup on this one. That's got to be pretty good. Among the powerful facts that DNI, Director of National Intelligence, missed, interesting, were a series of very deep studies published by the Financial Times that examined the structure and history of several major Trump real estate projects from the last decade. the period after his 7th bankruptcy, and the cancellation of all his bank lines of credit. The money to build these projects flowed in almost entirely from Russian sources. In other words, after his business crashed, Trump was floated and made to appear to operate a successful business enterprise through the infusion of hundreds of millions of dollars in cash from dark Russian sources. He was their man. Just to put a finer point on it, Donald Trump isn't rich. Donald Trump isn't successful. Donald Trump isn't a good businessman. What he is a guy who right now, or for the past couple of years, in addition to right now, has been sitting on a pile of Russian mobster cash that is supposed to make him look like he's still liquid and still a billionaire and still a success. Between that and the TV show that the success of which was to present him as a guy who knew what the hell he was doing in business. So I guess in the end, so that we would elect him because America was willing to elect a businessman. We've been saying for 100 years, as foolish as it is, oh, we got to have a businessman in Washington. That'll be different. That'll get things right. That's something. We got to end our relationships with all the politician presidents and have a businessman president. Well, I mean, we didn't want him when he was there, but Mitt Romney, I guess, would have fit that bill a whole lot better. Donald Trump is just, of course, a complete joke. Anyway, we'll continue on with Mark's write-up here. Yes, even that much seems fantastic. And the details include business agencies acting as a front for the GRU, billionaire mobsters, a vast network of propaganda sources, and an American candidate completely under the thumb of the Kremlin. It reads like a B-grade spy novel, a plot both too convoluted and too bluntly obvious for John le Carre. The problem is that it may not be a conspiracy theory. It may be just a regular old conspiracy. Horton's analysis comes from piecing together information in 3 Financial Times deep reports. One of these focused on Sergei Milyan. I don't think we've actually come across his name before. The head of the Russian-American Chamber of Commerce in the U.S. at the time of Trump Jr.'s money pouring in from Russia claim. Mr. Milyan, that's funny, Milyan, it's spelled with an A, insists his Russian-American Chamber of Commerce has nothing to do with the Russian government. All things in Russia have nothing to do with the Russian government. Wink, wink. He says it's funded by payments from its commercial members alone. Most of the board members are obscure entities, and nearly half of their telephone numbers went unanswered when called by the Financial Times. An FT reporter found no trace of the Chamber of Commerce at the Wall Street address listed on its website. That's here in America. Why was RACC's, that's the abbreviation for Russian American Chamber of Commerce, used hereinafter? Why was RACC's background filled with so many holes, like Carter Page's? The Financial Times quotes former Russian MP Konstantin Borovoi, B-O-R-O-V-O-I, Borovoi, in tagging the chamber as a front for intelligence operations that dates back to Soviet times. Hi-yo. The Chamber of Commerce institutions are the visible part of the agent network. Russia has spent huge amounts of money on this, he says. Milyan helped arrange for, you'll love this part, for Trump to visit Moscow in 2007. What do you know? And had other outings with Trump in the States, including a visit to horse races in Miami. Milyan claims that he had the right to market Trump properties in Russia. You could say I was their exclusive broker, he told Ria. I don't know who Ria is, but I guess that's the... Who are you, Ria? I can't get over it. I'm sorry. I apologize. Well, Ria, I guess, is the reporter for the Financial Times. Who are you, Ria? Hello. Then in 2007 and 2008, Dozens of Russians bought apartments in Trump properties in the U.S. We were getting at that a while back, right? And I keep telling you, Trump Tower and other Trump properties in New York are stuffed to the rafters with Russians, now many of whom enjoy Secret Service protection, just for an extra kick in the pants. And, you're lucky if you're getting kicked in the pants and your pants are still on at this point. Okay. Where were we here? You could say I was their exclusive broker, he said, right? Then everyone's buying apartments in Trump properties in the U.S. He later told ABC television that the Trump organization had received hundreds of millions of dollars through deals with Russian businessmen. And the good part about doing all these deals with the Russian businessmen is they don't care if they're getting their money's worth with the purchases. The purchases are basically garbage, straw purchases, if anything. The real key is getting dollars laundered. Why would they want to prop up Donald Trump? Why? Not so much because they cared very much about him, not so much because they thought he was going to run for president. I assume their initial interest in him was he'll take dirty money and clean it up for us. It's a real estate transaction. In America, those are largely private. There's no reason to believe the government is going to pry into who's buying apartments in one particular building or another. It's just a good way of laundering assets. If you've got dirty criminal enterprise money in Russia and you want it laundered and safe, you can use it to buy real estate, hard assets in the United States, where our government will protect your ownership of them for you, free of charge, and you get to turn them into something that you can liquidate and sell to somebody else and turn it into clean American hard currency later on. And in the meantime, I guess you can sort of enjoy yourself hanging out in New York if you can travel freely between the United States and Russia. All right. Oh, I just missed Armando's call, but I assume he'll try and call it again. Let's continue with Mark's article here. The second, I'm sorry, I almost missed one part here. Right, so Milian was saying he later told ABC television that the Trump organization had received the hundreds of millions of dollars in these deals. Despite documents and photos showing Trump with Milian, Trump denied their association during the campaign via the magical and magnificent Hope Hicks. Mr. Trump's campaign spokeswoman said, Mr. Trump had met and spoke with Mr. Milian only on one occasion, almost a decade ago, at a hotel opening. The second Financial Times article, by the way, puts Trump at the middle of a money laundering scheme in which his real estate deals were used to hide not just an infusion of capital from Russia and former Soviet states, but to launder hundreds of millions looted by oligarchs. All Trump had to do was close his eyes to the source of the money, and suddenly empty apartments were going for top dollar. Remember, he was sitting on the huge waste of empty, unused real estate inside Trump Tower. You can't tell from the outside that Trump Tower at most points is mostly vacant. There's people milling about. They're going in and out. If you wanted to buy one, they would still tell you it's $1 million. But in reality, most of that stuff is empty, and it always was empty, even in Trump's high-flying swinger days. We read a number of stories wherein he would promise to bring his dates back to his fantastic Trump Tower pad, only to bring them instead to some vacant fifth-floor apartment and try and entertain them there. Remember the story about the woman that he took to the restaurant and then took her upstairs, and there was like nothing in the place but a couch and a refrigerator full of champagne? That's because the place is empty, and it stayed empty until Russians started buying up the empty apartments. Anyway, so there you have it. Now, Trump closes his eyes to the source of the money. Suddenly the empty apartments going for top dollar. Another quoted segment from the Financial Times. Among the dozens of companies the Almaty lawyers, not Almighty, but Almaty lawyers, I don't know who that is, but we've jumped in the middle of the clip here, say the Krapunov Laundering Network, that's a funny name too, Krapunov, And Armando, by the way, I know is with us, waiting patiently in the green room and typing. Thank you, Armando. But the laundering network among the dozens of companies they used were three called Soho 3310, Soho 3311, and Soho 3203. Usually a good indication of shenanigans going on there. Each was a limited liability company, meaning their ownership could be easily be concealed. The companies were created in April 2013 in New York. A week later, property records show they paid a total of $3.1 million to buy the apartments that corresponded with their names in the Trump Soho, a 46-story luxury hotel condominium completed in 2010 in a chic corner of Manhattan. You'll remember that that's the weird situation in which a condominium had a launch party complete with Trump model management models and pageant contestants, and attended by his favorite Russian mobsters who financed the whole thing. Why would Trump's organization make such a good means of laundering funds? Because real estate has an arbitrary value. Is that apartment worth $1 million? $2 million? Why not $3 million for a buyer who really wants it? When the whole transaction is just one LLC with undisclosed ownership paying another LLC with undisclosed ownership, it's even neater than hiding the money in an offshore account. And while some businesses require due diligence in looking at the source of funds, real estate is a bit more flexible. I'm going to drop the story just for the moment there so we can welcome Armando to the air. Hi. It's been quite a day, hasn't it, Armando?
Well, 11 o'clock supposedly is this press conference.
Yeah.
We'll see if it comes off or not.
Right. Well, we'll see what comes off. His pants, perhaps? I don't know.
I don't know what we'll see. But the story you were reading is really at the heart, I think, of the issue, which is Russian money and Trump's dependence on it since the mid-2000s. The reality is Trump's main source of income it was that TV show, to be a pretend millionaire,
yes,
or billionaire, or whatever he pretended to be. And the reality is his casinos were failing. He has no substantial real estate assets. Even Trump Tower, which you're discussing, that was built decades ago. To the degree that he made money selling apartments, a lot of that was before. He still has the business commercial rental opportunities, but I don't know. I'm not that familiar with the demand there on it, but
yeah. Well, consider that when they filmed The Apprentice, they were able to occupy an entire floor of the place because nobody had to be kicked out of it because it was empty.
Right. It's not full occupancy.
Yeah. When they needed a campaign office, they just used that again because it was empty.
The other thing that's important about the real estate in Russia is there's some reporting. I haven't vetted it myself, but there's some reporting that there are recorded sales to Russian interests where the price is 500% over the market rate. Mm-hmm. There was a house in Palm Beach that I'm thinking of in particular that Trump bought for a piece of paper saying he owes them $10 million because that's how these things happen. I owe you money and I bought it for $10 million and I'll pay it. And then Trump sold it to Russian oligarchs for something in the neighborhood of $48 million, which is beyond any reasonable price. This was at the height of the economic collapse in 2009, I think. And that just could be a bribe.
Yeah.
For whatever reason.
And I think it bears repeating exactly the way that was structured. You can't do this. You and I can't do this. But a house that's allegedly on the market for $10 million, a person, like if I go and I say, I'll give you a paper that says I owe you $10 million, they say, no way. If you are a guy who pretends on television to have $1 billion, they say, way, okay, you might have $10 million. And it doesn't matter whether I have it or not because I flipped it for $48 million the next day. And as long as the oligarch comes up with the 48 mil, I can cover the 10 and keep 38. And it's, why would anybody do this? Why wouldn't the oligarch just buy it for $10 million? Well, in some cases he could, but in other cases he's sitting on dirty money that would raise all kinds of eyebrows if $50 million in cash gets brought across the border all of a sudden from Russia. All sorts of weird agencies begin to look at it. Whereas if I buy it as an American and it's in my possession because somebody believed I would pay them $10 million for it, and a Russian says, I'll put $48 million in a Russian bank for you, and here's the number, you can go pick it up. Now send me the deed.
That's a plot in the movie.
There you go. That's all that has to happen. And, what good would $48 million in a Russian bank do for you or me? Not very much. What good would it do for somebody who, I don't know, for some weird reason has a dedicated server inside Trump Tower that does nothing but talk to Russian banks all day long? Well, he's a little different. The rich are different from you and I, and suddenly the $48 million that you and I could never touch because it's in a Russian bank and nobody's going to give it to us is available as liquid assets to Donald Trump. Who knows what would happen if he tried to withdraw it? They'd probably kill him. But the fact is that now he can point to that and say, somebody else give me their property for a piece of paper that says, I'll owe you $10 million. It's a very convenient way. Why would the Russian oligarchs pay $48 million for a $10 million property, if it's even worth that? Because otherwise they get arrested trying to buy it directly. It's a $38 million premium on laundering the money, and they're sitting on so much of it they could care less. In addition to which, now, of course, the great benefit is, P.S., my best friend and heaviest debtor is President of the United States.
I got him right where I want.
Mm-hmm. So it was a good scheme. So it would be interesting to see him answering those questions today. Of course, he won't answer them, but today's press conference is supposed to be about how he untangles himself from his conflicts of interest. So we might as well start talking about what they really are, because it's not, well, I'll just liquidate Trump vodka and Trump steaks and Trump ice bottled water. Those don't exist. They never did. What we'll need him to untangle himself from is, first we'll need for him to own up to what he's got, and he's not going to do that. So guaranteed he'll be lying today. If he were under oath at his press conference, he'd be going down for perjury.
Yeah, well, I think that's really going to be pretty interesting because however you slice and dice this Russia story and his compromising situations, we don't know what his finances are. He has refused to release his tax returns or, frankly, given detailed information on his financials. Those financial disclosure documents, even when done properly, they're not, just don't go to the level. You know, they have these wide ranges and things you could disclose. One perfect example is it doesn't require disclosing holdings of under 50%. You know, a lot of Trump's holdings, he's got 30% or 35% or whatever.
Yeah, 18% in the Soho.
That's the kind of thing that, of course, is going to impact it creates a conflict, whether it's 18% or 50%, but it's not coming out in the financial disclosures. It's crazy.
That is weird.
And in the law, judges have to recuse when they hold one share of a company.
Huh. Well, that's pretty strict. Good.
So there was actually a little story where there's a patent case that's in front of the Supreme Court, and for whatever reason, in his conflict check, Chief Justice Roberts had missed that he owns stock in the parent company of one of the parties.
Oh, my. Well, he missed that. Sorry.
But then he found it, and then he said, I'm sorry, I got to recuse.
Well, good.
And he held, like 1,000 shares of some company that has 1 billion shares. Mm-hmm. I mean, his holding was not substantial. But we understood it was a conflict.
It's pretty good.
So when you look at it, when Trump discloses all his 18% and his LLC's holding 2% of this and 12% of that, because a lot of it's that way. Remember, Trump doesn't actually have any money. He doesn't put anything up. He puts up the brand, and he gets shares because of the brand.
So hardly ever is it a majority stake.
Yeah, very rarely. I mean, the hotel in Washington, by the way, the hotel in Washington's a problem.
Yeah,
that still hasn't been solved.
Right.
There's two reasons why Trump can't hold that. Number one, the lease itself said that you can't. Right. So he's breaking the lease. That's number one. And number two, the domestic emoluments clause. There's two. People forget this. Because we're focused on the foreign emoluments clause. Prohibits payments to the president from foreign, but the domestic emoluments clause says that the president can receive from any government, domestic government, his salary and nothing but his salary, which means he can't have a lease from the government.
Yeah,
he can't do business with the government in any way, which makes sense. You don't want the president being able to steer things to himself,
right?
You know what I mean?
Which, of course, is exactly what he's doing. But okay.
At this point, he has to divest. Look, there's one solution for it. If you care about these things, Trump doesn't. Do we? We'll see. Probably not. And when I mean we, I mean the country will say, oh, well, so what?
Yeah.
Well, he has to divest. That means sell. He has to sell. What's remarkable about that is that when Kushner was became a part of this officially, taking an advisor role.
Yeah. Which,
again, I give more credit to him being open about it than most people did, because he could have advised and not said, I'm going to carry the title advisor. There's no reason he couldn't have just done everything he's going to do.
Yeah, I don't know how you stop somebody from advising you.
But I guess he wanted to go to Israel and stuff and have an official title. I don't know what motivated it. But at any rate, he said, and maybe the divestiture is not good enough, but he's selling all his assets.
Yes, so he says. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But
I mean, he's selling to his brother.
Yeah.
Which is a problem.
Right.
But it is a closely held corporation. Maybe they have some triggers and contracts that make that happen.
No,
but at the very least, he's going through the motions.
Yes.
Trump doesn't even go through the motions.
No, I guess not. Has Jared thought about possibly not divesting and saying it's against the company's religion to divest, because it is closely held?
He hasn't. Of course, one of the most ironic things about it is Kushner's attorney is Jamie Gorelick. And if you don't know who Jamie Gorelick, she's a longtime Democrat who worked in Democratic Justice Departments for many years. Would have been a candidate probably for Attorney General if Clinton had won. But lawyers do what they do. Listen, we get paid to represent people's interests. That's what we do. So it's actually a pretty nice example of the legal profession itself. And people look at, how can she be representing Kushner? And the answer is Kushner's paying her. And that's her job.
Yeah.
That's what she does for a living. I'm a little touchy on this because I've represented people that in companies that people on my side of the politics think are awful.
Yes.
But that was my job.
True.
But at any rate, I do find fascinating the discussion, which you might have touched with Greg. I didn't hear it, but I'm sure you might have gotten to it. Is the ethics of this story, particularly BuzzFeed's release, because I don't think anybody can quarrel with CNN's reporting.
Mm-hmm.
Let's understand what CNN reported. CNN reported that the intelligence community briefed the President of the United States and the President-elect of the United States that there were allegations that they were looking at that Russia had compromising information, financial and personal, regarding Trump that could be used for blackmail.
Yep.
All right, that's what they reported, and they talked about a 2-page addendum to the classified report we've already heard about. We don't know what's in the 2-page addendum. CNN did not characterize the personal or financial information that was being looked at. Maybe they should have. Maybe that 2-page addendum needs to come out. That came from the intelligence community. It may just be a culling of what they found most credible from the later released, and this is where people get confused, by BuzzFeed of the 35-page dossier, as people like to call it, prepared by a former MI6 operative who apparently was working either at one point for Republicans and later for Democrats, all anti-Trump, where he was basically doing opposition research. But what we heard was that about this dossier was that it was submitted. The FBI apparently had it in August. The other intelligence agencies may have had it then or earlier. And they looked at this guy. Apparently they know him. He's been credible in the past. Yeah. So they say. I have no idea. I don't know who he is. I don't know what they consider credible. I don't know what any of it means. And then because of that, they felt, after doing some checking on the guy, they felt that it was necessary to alert the president and the president-elect about this.
Yes.
He was briefed.
He was. Kellyanne Conway, by the way, on the record is saying he doesn't remember that. He doesn't
Which
remember
is
being briefed.
Worse.
Okay. Yeah, right. Okay. You're incompetent.
Well,
you don't
what do you
remember?
mean he
Why,
doesn't?
I can't believe they said that one.
He doesn't remember being briefed about it.
I don't know.
What could that possibly mean?
I don't know.
All right, so let's say he doesn't remember being briefed. Well, that's not good. Has he got a physical condition? Does he have a mental condition? I mean, he could say, I briefed and I scoffed at it or whatever, but the briefing either happened or it didn't.
Right. I don't know what motivated that. Nothing.
Well, here's my theory, and it's weird.
Yeah, okay.
Kellyanne Conway doesn't know anything.
Okay. That I can believe.
Now, think about it. I honestly think she likes going on TV. They don't mind her going out there and spewing. But they don't tell her anything. She's not in the inner circle. She has no idea what's going on.
Normally that would be dangerous, but I think, again, we're still in LOL, nothing matters, YOLO territory. Put her on the air. She loves the job. No restrictions on what she can do. So you just go out there and say, well, what if she gets in trouble and says something that's obviously untrue? I don't know. So what? We'll just say, nah, it ain't true later. It doesn't matter. So it's the only theory that fits the pattern of facts. She's never been right yet. She keeps going out there and saying, and in nonsense, like, look in his heart. Don't listen to what he says. And he's out there saying, don't take me literally. Well, and don't listen to anybody else, or even maybe me.
It's like Spicer, who is actually the White House communications director, but, he very rarely knows what's going on. Who knows in the Trump circle what's going on? Probably nobody, really, because Trump himself probably doesn't know what's going on.
Yes, remember when he said there was no chain of command here, even for him. There's no nothing.
But, it's going to be Jared, it's going to be Ivanka. I'm not sure how big the inner circle really is. I'm not sure how deep it goes. Maybe Rents? I don't know, though. Tillerson clearly doesn't know. He's testifying today and contradicting Trump with every answer he gives.
Yeah, it's just a collection of free agents here. They're all billionaires, and they can't tell one another what to do.
Well, we also know that Mattis is basically at war with the transition team, rejecting every deputy that they suggest to him.
Well, that sounds like fun, too. I wonder who's doing the suggesting.
Probably Flynn, right?
I have no idea really who's behind a lot of times. The names I see, I haven't seen who's being put forward for his deputies, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's also, wackos like Bannon and now maybe, I guess, Chuck Johnson are nominating complete loons.
Yeah, but I don't know what Chuck Johnson is doing.
I
saw that story
lying,
and I saw it was funny,
yeah.
but is he? Who? I'm still a little skeptical that Chuck Johnson is suggesting deputies.
Very much
Mattis.
so, but no one has said it. No one said no yet, which is a little annoying.
Which is another problem. But listen, we're facing a myriad of problems with an unfit and unstable person who shouldn't be dog catcher, much less president of the United States. These are terrible times. This is a catastrophe. We put it in, and we make jokes, and you got to laugh or you cry. But the country is in a catastrophic situation here because of who the person who's going to be president of the United States is. He's stupid. He's unstable. He's unfit. He's a racist. He's a sexist. He's a misogynist. He's a buffoon. He doesn't listen to anybody that knows anything. He believes nonsense. I'm always struck by the old story. You probably noted it at the time. That WWE did like a fake thing where Vince McMahon was supposedly killed. And Trump called up Linda McMahon and wanted to know if he was okay.
I don't think I knew that story.
You can Google it. That's who Donald Trump is. He's an idiot.
Really? Seriously? Did he get
He's a
killed?
bad man, but he's also an idiot.
That's pretty bad.
And he's going to be the president. And you've got a group of Republicans. And again, I've always tried to game out, and I tweeted about this. What is the Republican game plan here? Survive this? Because, look, say what you want. I just don't see the Trump vision, whatever the hell it is, being what the Republican Party is going to be in the future. I think this is one of these catastrophic flukes, and all we can hope for is survival. And one of the ways of surviving, of course, will be hopefully taking back some House of Congress in 2018 so you can stop them.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
We need that. That's 2008. Then, as I said, this is my chronology of the Trump years, hopefully. This is a positive one. 2017, we do enough to stop most of what he wants to do. 2018 is an election year, so it's going to be mostly about the election. We beat the Republicans in 2018. We stop him at every turn we can after the midterms, and then we vote him out. And then we've limited the damage. That's the best we can do. Unfortunately, there's one thing that's going to happen that we can't undo in 2 or 4 years, and that is he's going to name the 9th Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States. And people don't understand how catastrophic that is, but there's nothing we can do about that. It's going to be some right-wing crazy. If Mike Lee, Constitution on Exile type, most likely.
I take the position that the vacancy on the Supreme Court is fake news. And I don't know what you're talking about. It's full up. Stop nominating people to vacancies that don't exist.
There is actually something important to do. You want to delay that confirmation as long as possible. And that means, let's say Trump, I assume he'll announce before the month is out. I'm surprised there isn't more talk about it. If I were the Trump team, actually, I'd be leaking who I'm thinking of for the Supreme Court. I'd make that the big story.
He can't make decisions. It's not.
Yeah, but his people around, they can leak 6 or 7 names who are on the short list and start making that a story. But Trump's. It's got to be about him for Trump. He can't let it be about anybody else. Yeah. But it seems to me that they'll need to put that out there because I don't want the clock to start running as soon as possible. If he waits till, say, the end of February, well, then you got to go hearings, and if it's a terrible pick, or if Democrats are strong enough, they'll say no, they'll filibuster. Then McConnell will have to break the Supreme Court filibuster, and there'll be stories about that, and that'll take a month. And then you're looking at April, May, June. The reason that matters, believe it or not, is we'd like to get a lot of cases out of the way with a 4-4 court. I'll give you one example, is this North Carolina gerrymandering decision. A trial court in North Carolina ruled that there was an unconstitutional racial gerrymander in North Carolina, and he ordered a special election in 2017. The Supreme Court issued a stay of that order. And is given time for briefing. Now, when will that be argued? That's a good question. When will it be argued? They have a stay of a court order and something very important. Well, most likely, based on what Rick Hassan is writing, there will be no special election in 2017, no matter what. But we still can have a decision, a 4-4 tie, hopefully, and throw it back down.
Yeah.
So that the racial gerrymander is still illegal for the 2018 election. So those are things that are more mundane in the sense that it's a smaller, more discrete issue, but those are things that are in play.
True. So, yeah, it'll become important probably to delay things long enough so that things that have come up either since just before or immediately after the vacancy. I wonder if this is going to begin, like if it's prolonged anymore. Certainly at this point, having prolonged it for nearly a year, I'm wondering whether there are any decisions below where opinions were colored by the possibility of that vacancy not being filled, and the appeals court's ruling ending up being the final word on it, because either the case can't be entertained by the Supreme Court or it comes back as a 4-4 tie. Anyway, I wonder whether there's anybody who's been on the bubble about something and said, well, I probably am making the final decision on this, as opposed to saying, well, I'll put out my best theory and we'll see where it goes from here. All I can do is send it up to the Supreme Court and see what they have to say about it. Knowing that there's a likely deadlock, do you say, it might be, as much as I enjoy this pet theory, perhaps I ought best to simply stand pat here. And I don't know whether that's, I can't, it's just pure speculation as to whether that's happening, but I wonder. And maybe we need to make sure that most of these cases currently in the pipeline get cleared out before we allow another justice to move forward. Although, I guess at some point it's not up to us. I suppose we just block them until they say, all right, that's it for the filibuster. But I don't know. I mean, do you anticipate at any point Democrats saying, okay, this is getting ridiculous, we give up? Or what?
Well,
I don't know why they would. I guess I'd just say, I'll keep voting no on cloture until you take that away, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's why I think the play out is going to have to be the end of the filibuster. Here's the question I would ask you. Do you think, as long as we're doing it for the Supreme Court, might as well do it for legislation? You think they'll go all the way?
Will they? I don't know. It's hard to tell.
They won't.
I don't think they would on their own volition. I suppose it would require Donald Trump somehow, one, being in good standing with the American people, and then two, pressing for it unendingly. And I mean, I could see him pressing for it even if he was underwater by 30 points, as he now is in his popularity. That won't stop him. I guess the question is, when does it happen, and what happens in between now and then? If the press is currently willing to credit him, for instance, with forcing the turnaround on the ethics office, it may be that in the virtual world that exists on Capitol Hill, they might view Trump as having that much power, that he could push them into eliminating the filibuster if it was for a central tenet of his platform. But since there's nothing he really believes in that strongly and feels obligated to deliver, I don't know at what point he would. I mean, he's so childish he could just start demanding it over anything. But I mean, he's flip-flopped on the wall, for God's sake, and who's going to pay for it? So I don't know at what point does he demand the end of the filibuster, and senators who have, after all, been there far longer than he is and will remain there far after, he's gone, will say, yeah, I listened to this guy about Senate rules. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, they're very willful people, so I could see the situation rising, but I can't imagine the issue to attach it to, I guess. But, it could be random at this point. Outlawing releasing videos of him watching people pee on beds. I don't know. I can't imagine what it would be. So, I guess we'll just wait and see, and I don't know, filibuster it for 4 years if you can, I guess. Why not?
I don't know. I'm sorry, I got distracted by a crazy Greenwald.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fine.
He's just lost his mind. Anyway,
well,
it's not even worth talking about.
Okay. I will. I guess. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to bring up, but I might want to continue on with Mark's.
Sure. Let's listen to Mark, and if you permit me, I'll peanut gallery it as I have something to say.
That's fine. I also have side by side for those of you who are. I don't know. I guess this audience just doesn't have it. But in case you needed a more serious take on all of this, like no pee jokes, Matthew Iglesias is up at Vox with Beyond Wild Allegations. What's clearly true about Trump and Russia is disturbing. So you can click on that and find out. You can guess Golden Showers Explained if you want. And maybe we'll follow up Mark's piece with this, but we're getting closer to the end of this. Where we left off with Mark was a good reminder.
Hey, David, I'm sorry. I actually have to run.
No problem.
I apologize.
Okay.
So no peanut gallery for me for the rest of the day. But thanks for letting me peanut a little bit earlier.
No problem. Thanks. I appreciate any break I can get, as you know, suffering through the cold. So I appreciate it. Thanks. I'll talk to you later on. Let's see. Where we left off last with Mark's piece, why would Trump's organization make such a good means of laundering funds for Russian oligarchs and mobsters? And the answer is the nature of real estate, right? How much should I sell you this apartment for? It can be anything, any number. It doesn't even matter, right? So, plus the fact that buying and selling as between limited liability corporations, which the ownership of need not be disclosed on both ends of the transaction, makes it a perfect candidate for it. And of course, he reminds us, while some businesses require due diligence in looking at the source of funds, real estate is a bit more flexible, and it always has been, and it will always remain so, because people like Donald Trump make millions and millions, or even possibly billions of dollars doing these deals, and they kick enough of it back to the people who write the laws about the flexibility that it stays that way, and will especially stay that way, I guess, if one of those guys becomes president of the United States. So, how flexible? Laws regulating U.S. real estate deals are scant, experts say. Provisions against terrorism financing in the Patriot Act, passed in the aftermath of the September 11th attacks, obliged mortgage lenders to conduct know your customer research, but money launderers pay in cash. Sales such as those of the Trump Soho apartments have passed through this loophole, which was partially closed only this year. So, in other words, if you're brokering a mortgage to make the sale, well, that you got to look at. If they come and pay in cash, well, there's no mortgage, so you don't even have to look. Converting funds stolen overseas into property in the U.S. and cash in the account of an LLC represented a win for both the oligarchs and Trump. Best of all, Trump's sole requirement was that he pay scant attention to the deal, something at which he was already a proven master. Way to go on that one, Mark. For example, the actual owners of the Trump Soho were another limited liability company, Bayrock. You remember them from our reading the other day. Trump was a partner in the LLC, and Bayrock cut the checks Trump received when those apartments were sold. And yet, another quote, in a 2011 deposition. Given in a dispute over the Fort Lauderdale project, Mr. Trump said he had, quote, never really understood who owned Bayrock. Jody Criss, remember he's the guy doing the suing here, a former Bayrock finance director, has claimed in racketeering lawsuits against his former employer that Bayrock's backers included hidden interests in Russia and Kazakhstan. Bayrock has denied Mr. Criss's allegations, but declined to answer questions about the source of its funds and its relationship with the Krapunovs. The third article digs more deeply into the origins of Bayrock and its connection with Trump. That connection was very close. The Republican presidential nominee and Bayrock were both based in Trump Tower, and they joined forces to pursue deals around the world, from New York, Florida, Arizona, and Colorado in the U.S., to Turkey, Poland, Russia, and Ukraine. Russia and Ukraine? What? Their best-known collaboration, Trump Soho, the 46-story hotel condo, you know that one, was featured, by the way, in Mr. Trump's NBC television show, The Apprentice. So just a little bit of a vertical marketing deal there, too. Want to drive up the prices on apartments or justify the enormous purchase prices that you're taking in cash from Russia and Kazakhstan? Feature it on the show and say, well, now it's exclusive and famous and everybody wants a piece of it. This, by the way, is the same group which Trump said he never really understood the ownership of. I don't know who owns Bayrock, Mr. Trump said. I never really understood who owned Bayrock. You're in partnership with them, whatever. I know there's a developer that's done quite a bit of work, but I don't know how they have their ownership broken down. At the very least, Trump confessed to partnering with, taking money from, and acting as a representative for a corporation whose ownership he didn't know in deals that totaled hundreds of millions of dollars in countries around the world. However, it seems far more likely that Trump knowingly worked with oligarchs, groups associated with the Russian government, and plain old mobsters. Why? Because he was desperate. By the 2000s, the property developer and casino owner with ready access to the capital markets and the biggest New York banks was no more. A series of corporate bankruptcies had limited his financing options. Mr. Trump had become an entertainer who portrayed a tycoon on television and licensed his name to businesses looking for a brand, leading to fee-making opportunities as disparate as Trump University and Trump Vodka. The Trump Organization was a hollow shell, and Trump was bankrupt. But Donald Trump, the public figure, was a quote-unquote successful businessman, a screen behind which criminal activity could be carried out on a massive scale. Throwing his name at every scheme in existence wasn't a strategy, it was a fire sale on Trump's respectability. Steaks, water, vodka, a fake real estate school. You pony up the cash, and Trump will slap his name on it. Because by the early 2000s, Trump wasn't just broke, he had nothing left to pawn. He wasn't a successful businessman, but he still played one on TV. His image had more value than his real estate portfolio did. But the apartments and buildings where Trump held some degree of ownership could be turned into value again. All it took was partnering with foreign crime bosses looking for a place to stash their cash. To inflate the value of his portfolio, Trump had to do nothing other than look away as the dirty money poured in from one LLC to the next. Citizens in Russia, Kazakhstan, and the former Soviet states lost hundreds of millions, but Trump got a cut as looted funds flowed through offices and apartments and buildings that carried those critical gold letters. Horton's evaluation of this material in coordination with the declassified DNI report is that Trump actively worked with and for Russian interests. What these exposés showed is that Trump pursued the projects hand in glove with Russian mobsters who worked closely with Putin's Kremlin. But based on the information in the Financial Times report, it appears that there are actually two possible answers. Trump may have been actively involved with and working for Russian sources. He might also have simply played the role of useful idiot, displaying his readiness to feign ignorance about any deal so long as it generated some funds to float his sinking boat. In the end, there's not a lot of difference in the outcome. Trump got his money, oligarchs cleaned their cash, and Russia got their man. And that's the end of it. Amazing. By the way, let's see. There's an embedded tweet here, or an embedded chart here, titled "Some Winner." Total casino stock returns from mid-1995 through mid-2005. If you were a shareholder in Casino America, you made 60% on your money over those 10 years. Harrah's, 140%. Argosy, 240%. Boyd Gaming, 280%. MGM, 430%. Penn National Gaming, wow, 3,240% returns. The Dow Jones Casino Index alone, 160% returns. Trump Hotels and Resorts, negative 89%. 89% losses. Sorry, what a genius businessman. So there you have it. I thought Mark summed it up pretty well. If you are interested in the latest developments and what you should and shouldn't believe, if you're a very serious person, I told you, Matt Iglesias is ready to help over at Vox, and he puts it this way. For those of you who would like to clean up the jokes and figure out, okay, what is the takeaway from today's show? We'll outsource that to Vox because they're super serious. And you're not going to take the pee jokes away from me. I'm not letting go. That's the important part. Seriously, I'm sticking with Greg's analysis on this one. The mockery is the most valuable asset. With reports that the Russian government may have dirt that they are using to blackmail Donald Trump, setting the political world ablaze, Matthew Iglesias is going to peer at you through his glasses and tell you, it's worth being clear about two things. Are you ready? One is that the content of these reports is unverified and likely unverifiable. What's more, to the extent that any of it could be verified, it's inconceivable that the intelligence community would publicly reveal the kind of human or signals intelligence sources that could verify it. So far as the public goes, I guess I should have said, we will never really know. The other is that the Russia blackmail theory is composed of two sub-elements, both of which are clearly true based on publicly available information. One is that Donald Trump has a curious and wrong-headed affection for the present government of Russia and its foreign policy. The other is that Donald Trump is engaged in scandalous conduct, the public revelation of which would cause a rational person to reduce their opinion of him. Allegations now floating range from the salacious, Russia has Trump sex tapes made at the Ritz-Carlton in Moscow, to the serious. Using intermediaries, Trump and Russia agreed to an explicit quid pro quo in which Russia would give him electoral help in exchange for his shifting of U.S. foreign policy. None of this is proven. Much of it is unprovable. If the FSB has a secret sex tape, how are we going to find it? YouTube, I think, is the answer. But the truth is that these kind of allegations, though difficult to resist, simply shouldn't matter much compared to what's in the public record. Yawn. But okay. First on Russia. Trump's strange ideas about Russia date back to at least 1987, when Trump called for a U.S.-Soviet alliance against France and Pakistan. That is unusual, don't you think? During the 2016 campaign, Trump publicly called into question America's commitment to defending NATO allies from Russian attack. Trump praised Russia's intervention in the Syrian civil war. Trump has also pointedly declined to criticize Putin on any front, whether it's about killing journalists or invading Ukraine. Trump's former campaign manager, Paul Manafort, made a lot of money working for Putin's proxy party in Ukraine. Concurrently, the Russian government's state-owned English-language media operations, RT and Sputnik, were fairly open in their advocacy for Trump and against Hillary Clinton during the campaign. And Trump, at the same time, has been very open about his desire to implement a more pro-Russian foreign policy, up to and including his decision to bypass conventionally qualified candidates and instead tap the CEO of an oil company with extensive business dealings in Russia as Secretary of State. We may never know why exactly Trump thinks Russia's brutal war in Syria was good, or why it would be wrong to condemn Putin for killing journalists, but Trump's Russia policy is both a bit bizarre and also quite clear. Maybe the Russians are bribing him into it. Maybe he just has bad ideas. Maybe they are blackmailing him. I have no idea. But if you're wondering whether there is dirt on Trump out there, then the answer is clearly yes. Trump was recorded telling a casual acquaintance that he routinely sexually assaults women and escapes culpability because when you're a star, they let you do it. Trump paid $21 million in damages to students at his fake university who alleged he'd defrauded them. Trump's foundation broke a wide range of rules about how it is legal to raise funds for charity and how it is legal to manage charitable funds. Some tax experts say the material is in place to open a criminal tax fraud investigation. And Trump's Atlantic City comeback was fueled by bilking shareholders. Last but by no means least, it's quite obvious that there's at least one thing, and perhaps several, lurking in Trump's tax returns that would be highly damaging to his political standing. He's taken a fair amount of political heat for quite some time now to defy tradition and keep these documents secret. I have no idea what he's hiding or whether the Russians somehow secretly know what it is, but he's pretty clearly hiding something. Special Congressional Select Committee investigation or maybe some kind of independent prosecutor seems clearly appropriate given the level of questions still hanging around the specific issue of Russian hacking and communications with Trump's staff during the campaign. But in broad terms, you don't need to resort to any cloak and dagger theories or secret classified information to know what you need to know. Trump has a weirdly sunny view of Putin, an alarming lack of attachment to America's treaty obligations, and some serious skeletons in his closet. Most people didn't vote for that, but the dictates of the Electoral College elevated him to the presidency anyway. The question now is whether congressional Republicans will uphold their constitutional obligations to check him. I hope we learn more about the stories roiling the internet this week, but the publicly available facts are pretty clear. Was this article helpful? I don't know. I have no idea. You'll have to evaluate that for yourself and add pee jokes as far as I'm concerned, just to keep the fun rolling. Don't try to take all the fun out of things, Matt. Gee whiz. Okay. There's plenty more. We didn't get to it all. We never will. Really, as long as this show ever runs. We're just not going to get to all of it. But I think we hit on the bulk of what we really, really needed to this morning. Of course, it's about, it's 7 minutes until the scheduled start of the press conference. There's usually a pretty serious delay. Politicians are late with those things all the time. We will, on time, hand the reins over to the guys on the after show today. I guess I should check. I just saw a message flash by. Yes, a fresh, brand new, just picked episode of the after show ready for your consumption after this. Let's see what else might be hanging out there. What can we hit on in the rest of the week? Of course, we'll have to go back to the story of Obamacare and its fate. We've got some interesting insight into things to share with that. Oh, yes, here we go. This is a perfect way to wrap up. I almost forgot all about this. I'm so excited by all the peace stories. This is really good. You remember when I told you that crazy, crazy story about how I thought that they might be able to install Merrick Garland on the Supreme Court by jumping in and interrupting proceedings at that brief moment after the convening of the Senate and the swearing in of the newly elected members of the Senate? And it caused all sorts of controversy, and you may recall that there were those out there who thought that that was just totally insane, both on our side and the other side. And they said, no, you don't understand. The 20th Amendment conclusively resolves this issue. You'll recall that the 20th Amendment, the section that was relevant, was the one that said that the terms of the House and Senate are fixed and begin at noon on the third day of January, unless by law a different day be appointed. That's Section 2 of Amendment 20. And everybody said, you see here, the terms begin at noon on January 3rd. There is no point at which there is only a 66-member Senate. You remember that? That hinged on a lot of it. And I said at the time, now, there's a difference between your term beginning and you assuming the office for which that term has begun. At noon on the 3rd, the office is available for your occupancy. Taking the oath is what triggers that occupancy. Here's a strange story out of roll call, seemingly unrelated, but see if you can spot the important point in this one. A little curiosity. House complete after Schrader swearing in, reports roll call. Alex Gangitano is the reporter on this one. I have to contact her and ask her about her sources for this one. Oregon Democratic Representative Kurt Schrader was sworn into Congress on Tuesday after missing the official swearing-in for his honeymoon overseas. Congratulations, Mr. Schrader. Speaker Paul D. Ryan conducted the swearing-in just after noon and announced that the House membership now numbers 435, just what you would have expected, right? Schrader was elected to his 5th term this year, but was out of the country when the rest of the Congress was sworn in on January 3rd. But what difference does that make, right? 20th Amendment. Now, who else agrees with me on this one? I think it's the clerk of the House. He missed, Schrader did, 6 roll call votes over the last week, but he was not listed as not voting because he was technically not yet a member of the current Congress. As it happens, by the way, Schrader's wife is Susan Mora, executive at Pepco, the power company in the region here. The couple got married on New Year's Eve in Maryland and honeymooned, quote, out of the country, maybe Moscow, I don't know, a spokesman said last week. But you spot the issue here, do you not? He missed the swearing in. He was elected to his 5th term. He's not a brand new member. It didn't just carry over. Of course, he's over in the House, and I suppose you could think that that was different, but he didn't take the oath. But they made time for him to take the oath. Why? I say because it's constitutionally required, of course, by, what was it, Article 6 that we decided required it? Anyway, how interesting that the clerk of the House didn't even list him as a member. The House of Representatives had 435 members seated during its first week of operations, and it wasn't until he took the oath on Tuesday that there were 435. Amazingly enough, despite the fact that he missed those votes, he's not listed as having missed them because he's technically not a member of the House, just as the newly elected members of the Senate, or the senators-elect at that point, would likewise not have been members of the Senate. And yet there would have been a quorum of 34 of the 66 existing members, even had all the existing Senate Republicans walked out in protest over the installation of Merrick Garland. It was hanging out there. I don't know what happened. We'll have to check. I mean, I don't think she just assumed that he wasn't listed as missing the votes for that reason. She must have been talking to the clerk's office. Maybe the clerk's office was totally freelancing the whole thing, and it doesn't make any sense, and the rest of the world says, no. I'd love to find out. But isn't that an interesting tidbit? Just thought I'd wrap that little bit of loose end up for you before ending the show for today. Time, like I said, to hand things over to the guys on the after show. I'm just pretty proud of myself for that one. Anyway, what's coming up on today's episode? Let's get right to it. The Supreme Court just handed the Republicans a victory in one battle of the gerrymandering wars. Armando mentioned that. They'll follow up. Health policy is hard as a key Republican senator traps the GOP from repealing Obamacare. Ooh, it is getting complicated out there, and I've got some more for that later in the week. And Mitch McConnell pushes the GOP's corporate power grab while all eyes follow Trump. Oh, yeah, a good reminder, we do have to keep our eye on the ball. For the last half, they'll be reporting that conservative con artist James O'Keefe got busted for bribing progressive activists to riot at the inauguration. And the head of the Black Caucus threatens to kick somebody's ass if Republicans keep taking down
Daily
the
Codes
Ferguson
Radio
painting.
On netrootsradio.com. You have been listening to the Kagro in the Morning Show
with David Waldman.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for hanging in there. One more day with the cold. I think it'll probably continue through the balance of the week. Good fun today, I thought. And a great opportunity to wrap up that loose end on the question of whether or not the oath matters at all. Too bad we're still not having that fight online. I'll see if I can bring it back up, and I'll talk.